Here goes the encoder, and you are good to go.
All right, we're back. Terry and Gary's Low Expectations podcast. Today we have special guest, hardcore legend, Tommy Dreamer. How's it going, Tommy?
The man, the myth, the legend. Thank you for coming on, Tommy.
Thank you.
Yeah. And obviously you're sporting the Red Wings hat. And what shirt are you wearing?
I'm wearing the Chic shirt. This is a Detroit-based thing. That's what it said on the email. So that's what I'm here for. I'm a babyface.
Right. Yeah, that's right, Gary. Turn your hat around.
Turn your stupid Cowboys. And I mean, as you know, Rhino, I'm a Michigan homeowner, so I can easily sport every cap,
Right.
even though I'm really, I'm a Ranger. Actually, I went to I've been to both hockey stadiums. I've been to every baseball stadium. I went to both Detroit stadiums, both hockey stadiums, and both basketball stadiums.
Yeah. And you wrestled at Ford Field, right?
Yep.
Little Caesars Arena and the Joe Louis Arena. And did you wrestle out at the Palace or no?
No.
We're actually at the I forget the name of the place out in Plymouth, but that arena too for ECW. So plus a lot of other you've wrestled for us on some charity shows at St. Sebastian. So you've been to Detroit quite a bit. So you've mentioned you're a homeowner, taxpayer too. So we appreciate your tax dollars here in Michigan. A couple things. What's that?
Fix your roads.
Right.
Right.
We've been screaming that the whole time ever since I got a driver's license. Now, explain to us why you got into wrestling, who you looked up to. A couple things. You were actually at Madison Square Gardens for that Jimmy Snuka dive off the steel cage, weren't you?
Absolutely. You're jumping all over the place, so I'll get you one question at a time. The first time I ever saw wrestling was 1979, and the game was supposed to be on Channel 9 here, and it was snowed out. It was the Rangers versus the Canadians, and the game was snowed out due to a snowstorm up in Canada. So instead, they showed wrestling from Madison Square Garden, and it was a wrestler named Bulldog Brower and Bob Backlund. And I remember like waiting for the Ranger game to come on, and I just was frozen with, oh my God, this is the greatest thing ever. Fell in love with wrestling, fell in love with Bob Backlund until he snubbed me for an autograph on my birthday and left a little fat kid with a sign in the snow with two other weirdo fans and basically three rats who maybe I should have banged back then. I was 9, I could have started my career early. And he snubbed me. Then I hated Bob Backlund. I started not liking wrestling. And before wrestling was in my life, I was just like baseball, New York Yankees, coming off back-to-back World Series. And then my father, who was a school teacher, we had a place in Florida, and we went and we saw wrestling from the Hollywood Sportatorium. And I remember liking the show. And then I saw Dusty Rhodes wrestle. It was Ivan Koloff and Dick Murdoch, who just had turned on America, versus Bugsy McGraw and Dick Murdoch. And I remember being frozen when I saw Dusty come to the ring. And it was like he floated on earth like he was a god. I remember the light hitting his blonde hair, and there was all like gnats flying around and cigarette smoke. And it was just captivated me. And the moment after the match ended, I bought my first ever 8x10, which was a bloody Dusty Rhodes picture. My first ever wrestling t-shirt, which no longer fits. I should have wore that. And it was a Barry Windham, The Kid Is Hot Tonight shirt. And I remember driving home with my father and saying that I have to do this in my life. And then my journey continued. To answer your other question, I've gone to the Garden a bunch of times, and on my podcast, the House of Hardcore podcast, I talked about the significance of the Jimmy Snuka match, because myself, Bully Ray, Mick Foley, and Nunzio, Little Guido, were all at that same show. We all went on to have great careers, and I kind of attribute it to, a lot of wrestlers have gone to the similar shows, but like a specific show that was so historic would be like Tom Brady went to the Catch when the 49ers beat the Cowboys, your loser Cowboys. And he was at that game and pretty much was like fell in love and knew he had to be a pro football player. But if you think about that has happened to a lot of wrestlers, but then Tom Brady would need 3 other players to be in that audience at that game. And then that was 37 years ago. And then 25 years later on that same day, myself, Bully Ray, Mick Foley, and Guido were all in the ECW locker room, basically being on the same team, wrestling for the same show, which is pretty cool.
Yeah,
That's pretty cool. Did you answer all of Terry's questions? I think there was at least 6 of them in there.
That was 3 that I answered.
Okay.
Hey, right out of the gate, I like to hit you with all the good questions. Now, Gary, do you have any questions?
Well, I just want to know how the longevity of your career. I mean, what do you attribute it to? I mean, you've been around for a long time, doing a great job, a hardcore legend. I know it's hard to stay healthy. How do you attribute your success to?
I always say my body is held together by peanut butter and chocolate because I feel it is. I also say that muscles rip and tear, but fat absorbs. And, I'm wrestling now. October 28th will be 31 years. I've yet to have a surgery, knock on wood. I am very superstitious. As Rhino knows, I've never washed my knee pads since ECW. My neoprene ones or my wraps, I've never washed them. And never. I feel once they totally go, my whole body will fall apart. Like my arms will literally fall off my body, probably my legs too. I also always lived a clean lifestyle. And another thing, which I think is key for people, I know you can't tell by my body, but I do work out. It sucks because I train really hard to look like this. And but I do about 45 minutes to an hour of cardio a day. And I also always worked out with weights, was a big gym guy. I remember there was one point, and I know I'll say the same for him. You couldn't tell by looking at him, but Taz, there was a point where Taz and I did not miss the gym for almost 4 years. And I'm talking Thanksgiving, Christmas. And it wasn't like we had 24-hour gyms back in the day, but you'd have to find these gyms. And I would travel all over because at first I was one of those guys that was obsessed with being too small for the wrestling business. But I always, when wrestling is a lot of the wear and tear on your body, but then it's the healing process. And that's what working out is. Even look at Rhino. Rhino has always been in good shape. He's been a lot heavier. He always moves good, but he's another guy who's meticulous about his training and like getting up in the morning. He's meticulous about everything because he's a psychopath, but he always wants to make it to go to the gym. He always wants to do stuff like that. And you have to, especially if you want longevity. And another thing, I never have done drugs. I've taken 3 pain pills in my life and I threw up 2 times. So I'm not hardcore. I failed at being a drug addict. And I don't like drinking. I never have. I don't like how it makes me feel the next day, because it would affect my workout. It would make me slower and it would give me diarrhea. So why would I want to do this to myself?
Right.
So Terry, you actually do go into the gym? Because last time me and you just hang out in the parking lot, I thought.
Right. Changing money. Looking like we're making a drug deal. Now, how did you get your job or opportunity with ECW? I kind of know the story in your first encounters with Paul Heyman. I think it's a funny story.
Taz was booked to wrestle Sabu. Paul lives probably by my old house, legit 6 minutes. And I knew who he was just because, from WCW. And we had a mutual friend that I knew from the gym, and she went to school with him. And she kind of hooked us up. And then we went to meet at a place. It's Nathan's Hot Dogs. It used to be on Central Avenue. And he pulls up in his Corvette. I'm waiting there. and I have my VCR tape and my 8x10. And the first thing he says to me, he goes, "You look like a cop." And I'm like, "I'm not a cop." And he's like, "Are you sure you're not a cop?" I was like, "Are we doing something illegal?" And then we went inside and ate, which was pretty much serendipitous of our relationship because we ate a lot, and met him, talked to him. And then I remember Taz was just like, "Dude, you're going to come to the arena. You're going to come to, you just, bring your gear, be ready." So I remember calling Paul, and this was like probably 2 weeks after I literally had lunch with the guy, and he picks up. I was like, "Hi, is Paul there?" And he's like, "Who's calling?" I said, "This is Tommy Dreamer." And he said, "Hang on." And then he gets back and he's like, "Paul's not here." And I was just like, "What?" And he's like, "Paul's not here." I go, "Paul, it's me, Tommy." And he was just like, "I'm his best friend." And I forgot who his best friend was. And I literally met his best friend later. And I go, "Paul, I know it's you. It is not. It is his best friend." Whatever, let's say Dan. And I said, "Okay, Paul, well, please tell Paul that I'm going to drive Taz to the show. And if he needs me, I'll be there. I'll be ready. I have my gear, all that stuff." And he's like, "I will tell Paul I am not Paul." And I was like, "Okay, Paul." And he's like, "Tommy, I am not Paul. I am his best friend, Doug." That was the guy's name.
Doug.
And I was like, "Okay." So anyway, drove to the arena. My first match was under a mask against the Public Enemy, against Gino Caruso. I mean, me and Gino Caruso versus the Public Enemy, which a lot of people don't know. And then the next day I wrestled Taz after the November to Remember. And like, dude, like maybe 5-6 days later, Paulie calls me up and he's like, "Can you come to the studio in Paoli, Pennsylvania?" So I was like, "Sure." I drive the hour and a half down there and he makes me watch my match with Taz. And then he's like, "Look at this. Look, look, look." And at the end of my match that you could watch on the WWE Network or on YouTube, there was legit 4 people standing, giving me a standing ovation. And Paul like freezes it and he goes, "I could do something with you." And I was like, "Okay, cool." Because I just thought ECW was just this regular indie, because it really was. I really did not know this crazy person, Paul.
Or Doug.
Or Doug.
Or Doug. But I didn't see this because this was when ECW only aired in Philadelphia. I didn't see it till later. Paul on that episode had all the heels going over. It was Shane Douglas. It was, I think, Public Enemy, but all the bad guys went over on that show. And then me versus Taz was the main event. And then Joey Styles is recapping the show. And then he goes, wait, let's go back to the arena. And he goes, "Look at these, fans that threw snowballs at Santa Claus. These hardcore fans are giving this young babyface Tommy Dreamer a standing ovation. Maybe there's hope for ECW after all." And then he went off the air.
Yeah.
And that was just pretty much like an amazing call by Joey Styles. And the rest kind of was history. I had a job ever since, and I had a job ever since in the wrestling industry.
Yeah. Now, what year was that, roughly?
19. I could go get my book, but I believe I think it's 93.
Okay.
93, 94.
Okay. And then after that, now when you were there, was there a lot of, because when they first started and Paul took over the book, weren't they having a hard time putting people in there? Wouldn't they try to give people hot dogs and a beer to come in for
No, there was nobody there. And, it was also due to condemned building. I remember, it could take me door to door from my house to the ECW arena. I have made it in an hour and 40 minutes. And I remember making it down there. This is before GPS. Me and Taz drove around because we're looking at the ECW arena. We're looking for it. And there is the old Spectrum. There's the old Vet. And there's all these famous buildings. And we're trying to find the ECW arena.
Yeah.
And we finally come across this frigging it was a condemned building. You have
Yeah.
what people have seen, and you could go back and watch the tapes, but it was a shithole, man. There was no heat in the winter, no air conditioning in the summer, but it was magical. And yeah, at the beginning there was no people, but they also used to do it weird. Like Paul, we used to do like the November to Remember, the first one had a lot of people at it, but then the next day was a TV taping. And they would also, old school offer either, $5 or then it was free because no one would come to the TV tapings.
Right.
So then later Paul switched it up where he just did these shows and he did the TV from those shows and didn't show all of it. So it made you want to see it.
Right.
As well as he kind of did the velvet rope routine that the nightclubs do where he made people sit outside and wait. And people would drive by and be like, what the hell are people waiting outside here for? It must be something going on. It's like, oh, it's pro wrestling.
Right.
And I mean, the best part about if you could go and watch on the network, you could watch it in chronological order and you'll literally see the houses start to go up. It's pretty cool if you look at it from that perspective.
Right. Right. Now, the guys in the locker room and stuff, could you feel the momentum as it kept going? And
no, not in the beginning. In the beginning, like I said, it was just, we were running like maybe once every 6 weeks.
Okay.
And it was, when I did my own House of Hardcore shows, it was kind of like that where I loaded them up with big stars. And I remember like, here I am, unknown Tommy Dreamer, and Todd Gordon, who was the actual owner, he had his guys that were already there. And of course, with new booking and new management, Paul wants to start using his guys. The only guy to really stay after was Sandman. But there was, and I mean, dude, that first card, I remember there was Jimmy Snuka, Tito Santana, Jim Neidhart, Road Warrior Hawk, King Kong Bundy, Terry Funk, Kevin Sullivan. They had picked it up from this Joel Goodhart's TCW that went out of business because he was just flying everybody in and he had some decent shows, but he was kind of, they would say a money mark. And then once the money left, so do all the boys. But this was, Todd was funding it and he had a lot of names, but Paul kind of used those names to get people in, but then started building his core guys who were Public Enemy, because there was nothing like these two white rappers who had this brawling style. And Ted Petty was around forever as the Cheetah Kid, and he took off the mask and did that stuff. Sabu, who was a game changer in the industry. Terry Funk, who was the legend that gave us credibility. Shane Douglas, who came off of a WCW run. And then his core guys of unknowns were Tommy Dreamer, Taz, the Sandman. That's kind of like how he built it. And he built his homegrown guys. And then the homegrown guys became the main eventers. And we just added people like a Rob Van Dam, a Rhino, a Justin Credible, a Lance Storm, where they were like known but not known, but became bigger stars working within the company.
We have a couple questions here, if you don't mind. They want to know, do you feel you get unfair ridicule from other wrestlers if you're not in shape, especially from Bully Ray?
No. And in my war of fatness with Bully Ray, I have never weighed, he has never weighed more than me. So I have won by attrition. There was one point when he was in Aces of Eights, he was like, I was getting on 280 and he was like 283. And that's always my fat barometer to see like, God, I got to lose weight. And I mean, jokingly too, but I don't know who I was just talking to. When I went to WWE, I was in my best shape. This was after ECW. I was 235 pounds, and I wanted to get the bitch tit surgery, gynecomastia surgery. Everyone was getting it, And when I went to go get it, the doctor was just like, I can't do it for you because you need reconstructive surgery on your pec. I have 2 torn pecs from wrestling. I tore this pec, shoulder, and bicep in one move, and I have a gaping hole in my chest because guess what? When that happened, it happened in Cleveland at about 4:00 in the morning. I then drove to Canada with my arm in a sling after spending, 5-6 hours in a hospital. That I blew off that surgery. I broke my neck. I broke my back. There's a lot of things that I can't train abs because then I have a slip disc that I've never gotten fixed. So if I do different workouts, I'll be laying on my back for, I don't know, days. And I've never stopped minus, COVID, but there's a lot of, I'm starting to see atrophy in my arms because I've torn so much, and I'm not making excuse. I also love food, and I may have a slight addiction to Oreos and McDonald's, but there's even when I was in the best shape of my life, I don't think I would never have abs, but I physically, unless I got everything sucked out, I don't think I could ever have or even maintain it, just because my body has been so beat up from the wear and tear of what I've done, but I'm okay with it.
All right. And question for both of you. Do you think ECW would have had the success if it came in any other time era?
No.
I think it's just right place, right time.
Everything that we did was illegal. Right place, right time. If you look at the world today, forget about music rights. We had a wrestler come to the ring smoking and drinking. Now, God forbid he hurt somebody, they would say we let an inebriated wrestler in the ring. That would be social media.
Yeah.
Because everyone is a social justice warrior, or how dare you have somebody smoke? How dare Rhino pile drive a woman off the apron?
I believe in equality.
I was doing it way before you, buddy. And
who do you think I learned it from?
There's a weird bunch of memes from when I first pile drove Beulah, and they were saying, the night Tommy Dreamer got a boner in the ECW arena. And I literally changed my pants because Paul told me to change my pants, because I used to wear a t-shirt and a singlet. And now everyone hits me up and be like, and I literally go and say, I was never sexually aroused pile driving a man or a woman. And then I'll turn around and go, but thank you for noticing that. I'm well endowed. I appreciate it. So to answer your question, no, ECW would never survive if it started today, because the world is, our slogan was politically incorrect, and damn proud of it. So no.
Just to add to that whole pile driving a woman and Dreamer being aroused, I roomed with Dreamer one weekend, and it was early in the morning. He went to the bathroom and he came back, and I'm half awake, and he wasn't wearing any breeches. And I go, now I know why Beulah married you. I almost felt like getting out of my bed and just pushing it upside next to his bed, so he would have a bed and his schlong would have a bed.
Well, thank you. Thank you for saying that publicly.
Right. But yeah, and Dreamer the whole time, he's like, you're such a neat freak. I can't room with you anymore.
That was a fun one.
Hey, we have somebody on here saying, hi, Tommy. Hi, Terry. Miss you both. Paula Lucier.
What's up, Paula? How are you?
She misses you guys.
Are we live on something? What are we doing? I don't even
know.
We're
live on Facebook.
We're live, buddy.
We're live.
All right.
And what's your thoughts on ICP and their promotion, JCW gathering of the Juggalos? Any stories?
I always love working for the Juggalos. Always loved the gathering. It holds the record for me going to a show on, let's say, a Saturday and leaving Sunday morning, and the sun was coming up. So they held that record for me. But they have a great group of fans and a great fan base. They're fun shows.
Yeah, I've always enjoyed wrestling for JCW and the Clowns ICP. They're really good guys, really good business guys, great in marketing and stuff.
There's a lot more questions. I only want to ask the one more. Any matches that you regret doing as far as hardcore matches that maybe you sustained injuries or?
I have no regrets. No, if for every stitch, bone I've broken, concussion I've suffered, I would not change a thing. I would not change turning down WCW. I would not change losing everything in ECW because it's made me the man who I am today. But no, I wouldn't. I have no regrets of any matches. I would have liked to not have gotten caned by Jerry Lawler in my testicles and not had gone to the hospital because I was impacted in ice and my little dreamer was not well endowed that day. It would look like a thimble, like rhinos. And then I had to.
Thank you for giving me credit for that one. way smaller than a thimble.
Speaking of your little dreamer, there's a lot of people in here calling you Tommy Lee Dreamer. I guess apparently Tommy Lee.
How do you know, Gary? Did you room with him?
I have a wife.
Oh, okay.
He saw the tape.
I saw the tape.
By the way, that's a sweet Salute the Troops Detroit Lions hat. I was going to go with my Detroit Lions hat. I have a few cool ones.
Yeah.
I got a lot of them. I got the Cowboys, got the Lions, got the Tigers, Red Wings.
The Bears. Come on, you missed that one. It was an easy layup.
No, I didn't miss them. I just don't like them.
Hey, Dreamer, now you mentioned Dusty Rhodes and you know how you just fell in love with it again. And when did you first meet him? And who was it? Paul's idea to bring him into ECW? I remember when he came in and just like you learned so much from him and to work with him, it was just great. And I remember I was teaming with Crano and it was versus you and Dusty Rhodes, and it was Fort Lauderdale, Florida, in that auditorium. And I'll never forget, you guys climbed up the ropes and gave us 10 punches. And I remember Dusty climbing up and he goes, I don't know if he was saying it to pop me, but he goes, "Whoa, knees, don't fail me now." And then as he's punching me, I'm thinking Dusty Rhodes is punching me in my head. Like, does life get any better? Right. So, no, whose idea was it? And when did you first meet him?
Dusty, the first time I met him was when we first ran in Atlanta at the Tabernacle.
Correct.
And I remember like being like, oh my God, that's Dusty Rhodes. Cause I was like fanboying, but I still I was Tommy Dreamer. And I was just like, but in my head, I was a little kid because I had never met him before that.
Oh,
and
really?
Paul was like, "Do you want to meet Dusty?" And I was just like, "Yeah." So I walked up super cool and he's like, "Hello, young man." And, we just bonded. He did that thing at the Tabernacle. He had fallen on hard times. And there's a lot of bad things that people say about Paul Heyman. Most of them are all true. There's also a lot of good stories that people don't talk about. And Dusty Rhodes was fired from WCW and they made him change in a broom closet. And Paul had told me this story. And most of the times when Paul would tell me a story, I wouldn't believe it. But then there's also a lot of times when it would be confirmed to be true. And Paulie walks up and gets his chair and sits with Dusty in the broom closet. And Dusty's like, "Paulie, you better get out of here. You're going to get heat." And Paul's like, "I don't care." He's like, "You were the one who brought me in here. I wouldn't have this if it wasn't for you. I'll get all the heat in the world." Because they were disrespecting him. And I remember Dusty confirming that story. And he's like, "Paulie never left my side." And he goes, "I remember saying, look at all these guys I made millionaires and this is how they treat me." So anyway, he was falling on some hard times and he got booked in ECW and Paul paid him. And then I remember the next show I went and picked him up right at the airport. That's when you could go to the gate. And I remember grabbing his bag and he was like, "Don't you grab my bag." I was like, "Don't you not let me grab your bag." And
Yeah.
we literally had a standoff in the airport. And I was like, "I will leave you here if you don't let me carry your bag." And then we hit it off. I was blessed to work for him in his own little promotion called Turnbuckle down south. And then I was even more blessed he was across the hall from me when I worked in WWE office.
Mm-hmm.
And I never forget his first day in the office, Paul comes and he's like, "Dusty's here." and we ran like two little kids and closed the door, and we just like were bullshitting, and we would do lunch. And I think the coolest thing, and I didn't learn this until his passing, and Cody had said that Dusty he had 5 people that he considered his friends in his lifetime. And I was one of the 5. And that meant so much to me because, again, he was my hero. And I took my name because of him. I love him. I wear polka dots, so everybody always remembers him. He was my friend, but he was my guy.
Yeah. I remember that night in Atlanta. And he was sitting on a box. This was after the show, and we were waiting to do promos. I think that's when you almost got killed in the alley. Remember, you guys were filming someplace.
I got carjacked. Yeah.
Yeah, carjacked. But anyways, yeah, I'll never forget. He was just sitting there and just talking about wrestling, and everybody just kind of like just slowly, sat around, and it was like one of those things you'll always remember. And he was smartening you up about the business and angles and stuff. And you walked away and you learned a lot. And it was just, it was cool because he was one of the guys, and I'll never forget that. And then being able to work with him and Carino and stuff, it was, you learned a lot just being in the ring with him and just feeling that energy from the crowd. It was definitely something I'd never want to.
There are times in your life, and I know you've gone through this, I've gone through this, where you lose your confidence. And when he came to ECW, I'll never forget, he was nervous. And he was just like, he was older, and he was also, Dusty Rhodes. And he was like, do you think these fans are going to accept me?
Right.
And me and Paulie were like, you're Dusty Rhodes. And he had like a bit of, because it was what he went through from, WCW. I went through it after WWE. I know you've gone through it.
Right.
But the moment he walked out there and you heard that eruption, it was like he instantly became cool in his own head again. And because you get lost in your own head and it messes you up.
Right.
And like, I'll remember when I went back to WWE to feud with the Wyatts, and it was in Pittsburgh. And I remember Bully and Devon are cutting their promo, and I got nervous, and I never get nervous. And I literally just like, because I was back in that system, and I was just like, what if they don't react? Like all this stuff's going through my head. And I remember just turning and I said a quick prayer, and I was just like, God, please let them remember me. And when my music hit and I saw the place and I felt the eruption, I had that same Dusty Rhodes swagger. I was like, please, I'm Tommy Dreamer. Like, but like, it's so funny when you see like these same type of things that you experience in life, which is, I love about it.
Yeah. I had that same exact thing when I went down to NXT in 2015, and it was in Orlando. And I said this, I did the same thing. I said a prayer and I go, please let them remember me and accept me and welcome me. And they chanted, holy shit, so they popped. And so I attribute that to my second run with WWE, that reaction from that crowd in Orlando. So, well, Hunter always believed in me, but I think Vince was like, oh, okay, this guy definitely has something.
Now, Tommy, you've had hundreds and hundreds of matches against everybody in the world. You're a hardcore legend. Is there any match that you haven't had that you'd want to have? Is there a dream match for you, or have you already had that dream match?
Man, I've worked with everybody. I don't want to say, like I said, I don't have regrets, but a dream match, but I don't think it could ever happen, even though we're still the same age, would have been me and Triple H. We were supposed to have a pay-per-view feud that got itch-nade. This was in like 2002, and it started and then it went the wayside. But I really would have loved to have worked with Triple H because he was a top heel, and we were gonna we were definitely going to do 2 pay-per-views. And if it was getting over, it would have been 3. And like that other one would have been in the Meadowlands. I mean, not in the Meadowlands, in Nassau Coliseum. But I would have loved to have worked Triple H just because I just thought, I've wrestled everyone, but I admired him for being an amazing heel. And I just thought heel Triple H versus babyface Dreamer, pushed babyface Dreamer would have been something like ECW Dreamer versus him, because the promos alone could have been pure money. I was also wanting to do it like when I had House of Hardcore and he had NXT, but that's all gone.
Right. Now, speaking of House of Hardcore, what made you start up your own promotion, and how did the name come about and all that stuff?
Just the natural progression. I mean, Rhino's known me forever. I did it all in ECW. I was doing it in WWE, and it was kind of, I guess, the next progression for me to just run. I only wanted to do one, and I drew very, very well in Poughkeepsie. And then I was like, I'll do another. And then it just started growing, and I came so close to like different TV deals, all that stuff. As when you're trying to grow something or trying to grow business, you'll have your ups and your downs. I had shows wise, they were all ups behind the scenes. They were downs in the sense of like, again, coming so close to television deals, all that stuff. And it's just, again, something I just always wanted to do. I did it for ECW. I did it for WWE. I made a lot of money in ECW. I made a lot of money for WWE. I made a lot of money for Impact when I wrote, their pay-per-view. And I was just like, let me write my own show. And it kind of worked.
And that was your first one was October 6th, 2012, right?
Something like that. Yeah. Sammy was one of my favorite matches of all time. That's how I feel wrestling should be.
Thank you. Yeah, I remember we drove in like on that Wednesday, Vic Joseph and I, and I'll never forget. He's just kind of he's kind of like, hey, I'd like to call the match this and that. And you had met him before, and I'm just like, well, you're going to be in town. Just let Dreamer know, and that you'll be in town. And so I was squatting at your house, and I'll never forget. You were in your kitchen, and you go, hey, are you going to call my show? And you could see his eyes light up, and he's like, yeah. And from there, he grabbed his notebook and started researching everybody. He already researched. I don't know if he told you that, but he started laying it down. And yeah, so he really appreciated that opportunity. And didn't he call everyone until he was signed?
He called every House of Hardcore show up until he left. He was probably one of the few people that really I was, I don't want to say devastated, but if I had my choice, I would have liked to have done like made it successful and had him as my guy forever. But right. I'm glad it worked out for him anyways, because with not having television or not having in the world of COVID, you can't run shows without a lot of money behind you to keep your product going. I mean, even Philadelphia you can't have public gatherings until May of 2021. So like, there goes what was my home ECW arena.
Right. Yeah, Vic, he would always tell me when he'd go in and do TV for you, when you guys would edit stuff together, he said he'd learned so much from you. So yeah.
Yeah, dude, I'm brilliant. Just ask me.
Must be a wrestler thing.
Gary tells me all the time.
Must be a wrestler thing.
Right. Now, speaking with Impact, now how long have you been with Impact, and going into Bound for Glory, what are your thoughts?
I'm going to change my name to Mr. Battle Royal because I seem to just appear in those for the pop. I think Bound for Glory is going to be a really good show. I think you're at the biggest disadvantage. I hope you've been doing cardio. I see that machine. It's still got some stuff, some clothes on it, and you haven't been doing cardio.
Right, that's stuff.
You're in first, bro. You're in first.
Hey, well,
you have a guaranteed 20 minutes.
I know what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna have you do a couple sit-ups right before the match. That'll lay you out for 2 days, and then I know I'll take care of Dreamer. or we'll do some certain exercise or stretches. We'll slip your disc and it'll be laid out. So that's one less person I have to go out. So,
Smart move.
but actually, I'll tell you a story real quick, Gary. This was in ECW. We're down in New Orleans, and I had a Saints jersey, and I took it off in Karina. We were out there and we were feuding with Dreamer. Dreamer threw the jersey out in the crowd, right? And I wanted it. Like, I wanted to keep it, right? And Dreamer felt really bad. It was the third game of the World Series in New York, and in 1999, October. And he had actually bought me a jersey, a New York jersey, and I still have it to this day. So,
what a nice person I am to him. Let me tell you a quick little story. Since he told a funny Dusty Rhodes story, me and Rhino were wrestling somewhere. I want to say it was an outdoor show, and it was like at a rock festival, and in between bands where we'd have to go out there and perform. So I go to climb up to the ropes to give my vicious 4 punches, and then I usually bite the guy. And after I bite him, like, I pause, and as I climb up, and Rhino goes, "What's the capital of Thailand?" And I go, 1, 2, 3, 4. And I go, "What?" And he goes, "Bangkok." Pop. And I seriously went like this. Oh, he caught me perfect and lifted my testicles like this. Poof. It was just the perfect flick. And I remember seriously, like, the people were so behind. I went, ah, and like I faked bite him, and I got off the rope so gingerly because he perfectly flicked my balls in front of like 2,000 people on drugs at an outdoor festival.
that's not the first time I've done that. If I do it to you, it's because I like you. So. It's one of my famous little gimmicks I'll do.
The ball flick, huh?
I'm going to get you back in this battle royal live on pay-per-view this Saturday at Bound for Glory. I'm coming for your nuts.
So what is Bound for Gore? Where can they watch that? Where can the fans watch Bound for Gore this weekend?
I believe it's on the Fight Network. It's on pay-per-view, and it's going to be a really good show. And, you know, we're talking Eric Young versus Rich Swann, and not to sell a pay-per-view, but, you know, when we talk about confidence, Eric Young's the guy who's been on a mission, and Eric Young has gone out there and, you know, said after he got let go from the WWE, when you have 10 hours a week of programming and you can't find 6 to 8 minutes for me on your show, you're doing yourself and the wrestling fans a disservice. And he's got this quest of his to prove that he's the best. That's why he's the current champion. And then I just interviewed Rich Swann on Busted Open, and, you know, we all saw what happened to Dak Prescott on television. The same exact thing happened to Rich Swann.
Oh, okay.
And we kind of downplayed it on Impact, which I wish we didn't. But when he told that story too, man, there was things that I don't know. When he heard it himself, his ankle went like that in San Antonio. And instead of going to the hospital, he got in a car and drove to Dallas because we had a pay-per-view. And then he waited 2 days, and then he flew home with his ankle like that. And I was like, "You flew?" And, you know, that's how we lost Chris Candido. When you fly, when you have an injury after a surgery, you get a blood clot in your leg. And he flew home. And when all this went down, and COVID hit, so he couldn't have the surgery. And he broke his ankle, his tibia, his fibia. They said the only thing why it didn't become a compound fracture was because of his wrestling boots. And the only thing that held together was his skin in his wrestling boot. Yeah. And he waited like 2 weeks before he could get his leg fixed. And you think about what happened to Dak. He was flown instantly to go get that fixed. This guy had to wait. And then it was like, hey, not only, you know, they were like, forget about ever wrestling again. They're like, you may never walk right again. And then his first match comes back at Slammiversary, and, you know, he was able to test it out, got a little, you know, he rehabbed himself because the rehab facilities weren't open because of COVID. And he came back super early. He came back a little too soon. but now he has his opportunity, and hopefully it works out. But I think it's going to be a really, really good show. The Deanna Perrazzo, Kylie Ray, the Call Your Shot Gauntlet. Rhino may be out of a job. I'm kind of hoping so. If he doesn't win, or what is it? If you don't win, you don't have a job anymore, right?
Right. And that's why I'm hoping this podcast takes off. So if I don't have a job, I can at least pay my bills. So thanks for coming on and helping the ratings. So,
Yeah.
but I'm fingers crossed. I'm confident. So
if not, why don't you just maybe try to base it out of start wearing Jaguar hats? Maybe that'll help you out a little bit.
right.
Trying to get sympathy. Hey, I do have one more question. Another one came in that I don't understand, but hopefully you will. Ask Dreamer who would win a log rolling contest, a mummy or a vampire?
Well, I would clearly say a vampire, because a mummy, if he's rolling the log, it would get wrapped up in his wrappings, and he would then just be no longer a mummy.
See, we get the best questions on this show.
Right.
You really got to think.
Thanks, Justin.
Yeah, and now you stay very busy. Obviously, when the shows were running, and a lot of you're very influential in the locker room. I remember when I first started in ECW, everybody would go to you, and I noticed that. And you would always shoot straight with them, and you're very well respected. Now you're a big influence in Impact's locker room, whatever company you worked for, whether it's WWE. Now, does that weigh on you because you have more of a workload because you got your own stuff? Then you have, with Impact, you're helping guide the shows and stuff like that. And then you have everybody coming to you for answers and for advice. Or is that just something that comes?
Well, thank you. And also, yeah, good doing it from ECW. I mean, we needed it to decipher Paulie's crazy. And, WWE, the first time when I was there just as a talent was one thing, but after I worked in the office and I got to see how things were, I was trying to help out that way. And especially we bring back the new ECW and kind of always balanced working behind the scenes and in front of the camera. And Impact, man, and you too. I mean, you're a locker room leader because it's experience, and you're a guy who wants to help get everybody over because then the product will be over, but also keeping yourself over. There are some days, our last tapings, like I wrestled 5 matches in 4 days, and I was the only person to wrestle. I was scheduled to wrestle 2 singles matches. And like I had to, for the first time ever, I was like, I physically can't do this. I need to do a singles and a tag because that's kind of how they do it. And I was like, because I was beat up, because plus I agented about like 6 matches, and like you're the first person there and the last person to leave.
Yeah.
And it's, I'm want to get prepared for my match, but now I'm agenting a match, and then my match is next. I'm literally agenting in my gear, going, putting together stuff. Or then my next match, I think I had like a 2-match break in between my Eric Young match and then agenting another match. And like, he broke his hockey mask over my nose. He split open my nose. He caned my ankle. My ankle was killing me. I was like, I just need ice. I'm trying to take off my boot because I got to go agent. And that was like the first time where I was like, ugh, I'm very getting old, because that was the only time I was like, I don't know if I could do this like this. It was such like, well, I have to pace myself like that.
Well, it's like a 16-hour day, if not longer. And plus you're in physicals, you're in 2 matches. I remember looking at the run sheet, and I'm thinking, wow, Dreamer's got a pretty busy day ahead of him.
Thanks.
I think the agent my one match too. So I'm like, hey, where's Dreamer's busy?
I remember like I tabulated it, and I was like, I literally wrestled in 4 days over an hour and 20 minutes of actual in-ring wrestling.
Yeah.
Because I had long ass matches. And I even like when it got to more, I was like, do you realize I'm going to be 50? Like, there's a lot of younger people out there. But him and Don Callis try to kill me every week.
Right. Now, if some people don't know the meaning, when you wrestled Moose, your shirt that said "Moose sucks eggs." Can you yes? Can you talk about that? And where'd you get it from?
It was a famous Terry Funk shirt that said "Dusty sucks eggs." Okay. So I just replaced Dusty with Moose, and that is my great creative process. but I also like kind of went with, I'm kind of morphing into, if you can't tell by my crazy hair, I'm kind of morphing into Terry Funk meets Dusty Rhodes,
which I
maybe
love.
like a 50-year-old emu or a haircut. Yeah, I look great, man. I'm sexy.
Right there, you look like Jules from Trailer Park Boys. You ever get that?
All the time. And
He's
there
my
has been,
favorite. He's my favorite. We just need a drink in your hand. Dreamer, we actually only wanted to keep you for 30 minutes. I'm glad you were able to do all this time. I think it's very beneficial for guys and girls coming up in the wrestling business to listen to you and other guys or girls that have been around for a while. So, Gary, do you want to take us out?
Yeah, I just want to make sure everybody gets to know where they can follow you, Tommy. Instagram page or Facebook page or
sure.
like that.
I'm the Tommy Dreamer on Twitter, the Gram, and Facebook. And
if you want to call him directly, his phone number is
we had that scrolling at the bottom the whole time.
right. Call him. He's awake at 3 a.m.
Well, we have an event coming November 21st. We just want to mention it real quick before we get out of here.
Yes, tickets are on sale. And then Dreamer, I definitely want to bring you in for one of our shows. See how your December schedule looks like. So
it'll be awesome. But thank you, Tommy. It was a pleasure having you on. It was an honor having you on. Appreciate you coming on. Terry, and
right.
Next week.
And make sure to follow us on YouTube, Instagram, Facebook. We'll be streaming live here every week. And then check us out on the iTunes, the iHeartRadio, and the Spotify. All right. Thanks, everybody. Appreciate your time.
Thank you, Tommy. Thank you, Dave.
Thanks, Tommy. November 21st, IWR Gore's Giving.
There it is.
Thanks.